Hello everybody, Max Scoville here for IGN. I'm at PlayStation Experience 2017, and as a proud owner of a PlayStation VR headset, I was incredibly happy to see how many of these units are on the show floor and how many games are on display. If you're a VR supporter, you may notice that it's not quite there yet. We haven't had quite the games we might have been hoping for, but I got to play 5 games that give me a lot of hope for where this is going. First up is Star Child. We saw a trailer for this at E3, I believe. It's made by the guys who did Lucky's Tale, that previous Oculus game that then did go over to Xbox One. They claim that Lucky's Tale is kind of their Mario. This is sort of their Metroid. It's a really interesting game. The way I immediately felt playing it was like if you were playing Super Metroid, but your head was on the inside of the screen. It's got this very diorama-like feel to it. It's pretty much just a straightforward platformer. If there's sort of the idea of a 2.5D platformer, this is something far beyond that because you're in VR. So your head controls the camera. You can lean in really close to look at things, and it's... I don't think immersive is even the right word. It's just, you feel like you're very close to what's going on, and like monsters will creep on and come near your character as you're solving puzzles, but they're scary even though you're not in first person. They don't feel exactly huge, but it's like if you were looking at some kind of aquarium or, like an iguana cage or something. Another game I played is the Inpatient. This is from the guys who did Until Dawn. This is actually in the Until Dawn universe. We've seen them regular Until Dawn, and then of course there's Rush of Blood, which is sort of that carnival sort of shooter approach. This is much more of atmospheric horror. It's kind of an adventure game. You are a person with amnesia who's checked into a mental hospital. It's actually the same mental hospital from Until Dawn. It just takes place years and years before. I wasn't wild about the horror elements. I'm not really big into scary stuff, and also I feel like it's very tropey. There's some kind of very familiar themes here. It's a haunted hospital. What I did love about it was mechanically, I feel like we're getting to that sweet spot with VR controls where you can put the headset on and kind of immediately know what you're doing without it being totally remedial. There are ways to pick things up, there are ways to interact with stuff, and it just, it felt not too simple, but not too complex. Another game that I thought was going to be much too complex is Firewall 0 Hour. This is a 4-player co-op shooter, actually co-op competitive. It's basically Rainbow Six Siege except in VR. It's 4 people on teams. I got to play with the VR aim controller, and verbal communication is key here. You've got 4 people going into sort of this estate. You have to locate a sort of a data hub to find out the location of a laptop that you're going to be downloading data from. And the whole time, of course, bad guys are shooting at you. It's very, very Tom Clancy-ish. You've got, you pick a class. You've got submachine guns, assault rifles, shotguns, and you've all got flashbangs and grenades. But end of the day, it just felt very laser taggy. Like it was really fun. I'm curious to see how a multiplayer co-op works with VR when you're not actually in the same room. I don't know how much an internet connection will play into that, or really just the social element. But it was really fun. Felt like very, very short rounds. Felt like, again, laser tag. Wipeout is a series that has been tied to Sony consoles since the dawn of Sony consoles. It's always been a way to show off just the speed and the sound and the colors and all the cool things about a PlayStation system. And Wipeout VR is really no exception. It's you're flying around in rocket ships, drifting. There's techno music playing. You're shooting lasers and dropping mines and stuff like that. It feels wonderfully carnival ride-ish, but at the same time, there's enough of a game there that I feel like this is the kind of thing people could really get sucked into. It's got all the bells and whistles of multiplayer, and I believe it has Wipeout HD, the original, and then I think the more recent one than that. But I'm not a Wipeout expert, so don't quote me on that. In short, it works. Now, finally, the game I'm most excited about is one of the highest rated VR games on PC. It's called Accounting, one of the most boring concepts known to man. Accounting Plus is effectively Accounting 2. It's really twice the game. This is from William Pugh, who made the Stanley Parable, very popular, weird PC game, and Justin Roiland, who you might know as the voice of Rick and Morty and the co-creator of that show. This is one of the funniest video games I've ever played, in addition to being an incredibly fun VR experience. It's completely nonsensical. You are getting a job as an accountant, but then you get sucked into VR, and then what follows is sort of almost WarioWare-like vignettes that are sort of adventure game-ish, but at the same time, incredibly foul-mouthed, just utterly puerile, downright hilarious, and just really fun to play. At one point, I was being yelled at by a man sticking out of a tree stump, and I had to answer a telephone, and I had 2 people on the other end of the phone yelling at me at the same time the man on the tree stump is yelling at me. I did all kinds of stuff in that game. They do the thing that's really important in VR, which is to take incredibly mundane actions and capture the novelty of doing them in VR. In any case, these games are all coming out pretty soon. It's a good time to have a VR headset. I have much more faith in owning mine since this PSX. We've got lots more coverage coming up from PSX 2017 on IGN, so don't go anywhere. And remember, VR isn't real, but it's pretty cool anyway. I don't know if that's a good slogan, I just made that up.